I was once convinced I had built a perfect life, a thriving career, financial security, and a loving marriage. At least, that's what I believed. My wife, Sophia, had been by my side for 8 years, a woman I once saw as both my partner and my greatest support. She was beautiful, intelligent, and, at least on the surface, seemed like a devoted spouse. We had met in college, fallen in love swiftly, and married as we embarked on our professional journeys. As my business took off, I poured myself into its growth, ensuring we never had to worry about money. I thought I was protecting us, providing Sophia with a life of comfort and freedom. She never had to stress over bills, never had to work unless she wanted to. But in my relentless pursuit of success, I failed to see the cracks forming in our marriage. I never realized that while I was building our future, I was also slowly losing my wife. At first, the changes were subtle. Sophia had always preferred understated elegance, her wardrobe filled with classic and graceful outfits. But suddenly, her style transformed: bold dresses, tight-fitting silhouettes, towering designer heels. Expensive clothing appeared in her closet, yet I never saw her wear them when she was with me. It was as if she was dressing for a different life, one I wasn't a part of. Then came the secrecy. She had once been careless with her phone, leaving it on the table or sofa without a second thought. Now, it was always in her hand, the passcode changing frequently. If I walked into a room unexpectedly, she would quickly lock the screen, her expression unreadable. At night, I would wake to find her bathed in the soft glow of her phone screen, fingers flying over the keyboard, a smile playing at her lips. When I asked, she would force a casual laugh. "Just a friend," she would say. But I knew that look wasn't meant for casual conversations. She started disappearing more often. Once, she had delighted in our quiet dinners and movie nights, in the simple joy of being together. Now, she always had an excuse: yoga classes, girls' nights, charity events. But those outings stretched longer and longer. One evening, she left for dinner at 7. By midnight, she still hadn't returned. When I called, she answered in a tired voice, claiming she had lost track of time. Once might have been believable. But it kept happening. Her affection for me faded. Conversations became brief, forced. Her eyes, once filled with warmth when she looked at me, were now distant, distracted. She was slipping away, and I knew, deep down, I knew. But I needed proof. One night, while she showered, I noticed her iPad still unlocked. My hands trembled as I opened her messages. And there it was. His name was Lucas, a personal trainer. Their texts were intimate, filled with longing, plans for secret rendezvous, and even stolen moments captured in photos. She hadn't just betrayed me. She had been living a separate life for months. I wasn't ready to confront her, not yet. Instead, I hired a private investigator. Within a week, I had everything I needed. Photos of them together, walking hand in hand into a luxury hotel, smiling, laughing, as if they were the real couple. Credit card statements showing extravagant purchases, expensive hotel stays, funded with my money. The night I decided to confront her, I was calm. I placed the evidence on the table and waited. When she walked in, she hesitated at the sight of me, sensing something was wrong. "I know everything," I said, my voice steady. She blinked, feigning confusion. "Know what?" I slid the photo of her in Lucas's arms across the table. Her face paled. But instead of guilt, she lashed out. "You spied on me. You had no right." A cold chuckle escaped me. "I didn't need to. You were careless." For a moment, she was silent. Then, she shifted to blame. "This is your fault. You're always working, always too busy for me." I was lonely. I needed someone to listen to me. I clenched my fists but refused to give in to anger. "And your solution was betrayal. To not only cheat but to use my money to fund it." She bit her lip, unable to meet my gaze. At that moment, I felt nothing, no sorrow, no heartbreak. Only clarity. The woman before me was no longer my wife. She was a stranger, deceitful and cold. There was nothing left to salvage. I didn't argue. I simply stood, looked at her one last time, and left the room. But I wasn't finished. I wouldn't let her walk away unscathed. Silently, I began dismantling her illusions of victory. I met with my lawyer and accountant, restructuring my finances, shifting my assets into forms she couldn't touch. My investments became difficult to trace, my salary reduced on paper, minimizing any claim she could make in the divorce. Every move was calculated, airtight. Meanwhile, I let her believe I was defeated. I let her think she had won. When she left at night to be with him, I didn't stop her. I simply watched, waited, gathered more evidence. I knew she and Lucas were making plans to leave me, to take what they could and start anew. But what they didn't know was that I was always one step ahead. When the time was right, I acted. An anonymous package arrived at her parents' home. Photos, messages, financial records. Her once proud family was devastated. Her reputation in ruins. The same package reached her elite social circle, the people whose opinions she valued most. Overnight, whispers turned to open disdain. The invitations stopped. The admiration vanished. She was no longer the sophisticated, admired woman they had once known. She was a scandal, a disgrace. But the final blow came in the office of our lawyers. As she sat across from me, waiting to negotiate, I placed a thick file on the table. She flipped through the pages, her face draining of color as she realized the depth of my preparation. There was no room for negotiation, no way to twist the truth. She tried to argue, to play the victim, but I had stopped listening. For the first time, she saw it. She had lost. And I walked away, my future intact, my dignity unshaken. She had thought she could outplay me. She had underestimated me. And that was her final mistake. I once believed I had a perfect marriage, a love story that had stood the test of time. Sophia, my wife of 8 years, had been everything I thought I wanted. Beautiful, intelligent, and seemingly devoted. We had met in college, fallen in love swiftly, and married as we embarked on our respective careers. My life revolved around building a future for us, ensuring we had financial security, and pushing my business to greater heights. While I worked tirelessly, Sophia never had to worry about money. She was free to indulge in the life I provided, free from concerns about bills, responsibilities, or the weight of ambition. I thought I was protecting us. I thought I was doing everything right. But what I failed to see was that, in the shadows of my success, my marriage was crumbling. And Sophia wasn't just changing. She was betraying me in the cruelest way possible. At first, it was subtle. A shift in her habits, her appearance. The woman who once preferred elegant simplicity in her wardrobe now seemed fixated on bold, extravagant outfits. Tight-fitting dresses, luxurious high heels, an ever-growing collection of designer pieces. Yet I never saw her wear them for me. It was as if she were dressing for another life, one I wasn't a part of. Then came the secrecy. Sophia had always been careless with her phone, leaving it on the table or sofa without concern. Now, it was always in her hand or locked away in her bag, the passcode changing frequently. If I entered a room unexpectedly, she would hastily turn off the screen or set it face down, her fingers trembling just slightly. Nights became lonelier. She used to enjoy our quiet evenings together, watching movies or dining out, but now she was constantly finding excuses to leave. Yoga classes, girls' nights, charity events, endless outings that stretched late into the night. Once, she told me she was having dinner with friends at 7. By midnight, she still hadn't returned. When I called, her voice was weary, dismissive. We lost track of time, she said. It was a story that would repeat itself over and over again, each time more transparent than the last. But the final confirmation came in the dead of night. I woke up to the faint glow of her phone screen, illuminating her face as she lay beside me. The expression she wore, the slight smile, the gleam of excitement in her eyes, was one I hadn't seen in years. When I asked who she was talking to, she forced a weak smile and muttered, "Just a friend." But I knew better. That smile wasn't meant for a casual conversation. The truth was right in front of me, yet I hesitated. I wanted to believe that I was imagining it, that I was paranoid. But doubt gnawed at me, refusing to be ignored. One evening, when Sophia was in the shower, I noticed her iPad sitting on the table, still logged into her messages. My heart pounded as I opened them. And there it was. His name was Lucas. A personal trainer. Their texts weren't just flirtatious, they were explicit, filled with longing, stolen moments, secret rendezvous. There were intimate photos, love notes, confessions that made my stomach turn. My hands clenched into fists, but I forced myself to breathe, to remain calm. I needed proof. Real proof. I hired a private investigator. Within a week, the truth unfolded before me in stark detail. Photographs of Sophia and Lucas walking hand in hand into a luxury hotel, their stolen kisses, the way they laughed together, as if they were a real couple. The betrayal wasn't just emotional, it was financial. Large withdrawals appeared on Sophia's credit card statements, money she had used to fund their affair. Hotel bills, expensive gifts, indulgent dinners, all paid for with my hard-earned wealth. That night, I made a decision. I wasn't going to confront her in anger. I wasn't going to yell, demand explanations, or plead for honesty. Instead, I was going to take everything away from her, the way she had taken everything from me. I met with my accountant and lawyer under the guise of reviewing my business. In reality, I was restructuring my finances, ensuring that Sophia would be left with nothing when the inevitable divorce came. Investments were transferred into harder-to-trace assets. Cash was withdrawn from joint accounts and placed beyond her reach. My salary was restructured, minimized on paper to limit what she could claim in court. Every move was calculated, leaving no loophole for her to exploit. Meanwhile, I played my role flawlessly. I let her believe I was broken, that I was blind to her lies. I never questioned her when she left the house late at night. I never argued when she came home smelling like another man. I simply watched, documenting everything. I knew she and Lucas were planning to leave me, to use my wealth to build their perfect life together. But what she didn't know was that I was always a step ahead. Then, when the moment was right, I acted. An anonymous package arrived at her parents' house, filled with evidence of her betrayal. Another found its way to the elite social circles she so desperately clung to. The images of her sneaking into a hotel with Lucas, the messages, the financial records, it was all there. Her pristine reputation, the status she had built, crumbled in an instant. Friends turned their backs, whispers of disgust followed her, invitations stopped coming. Even her own parents, who had once adored her, were too ashamed to speak to her. Then came the legal battle. Sophia walked into the courtroom dressed impeccably, her confidence unwavering, at least on the surface. She believed the law was on her side, that she would leave with half of everything I had built. Her lawyer spun a tale of sacrifice, of a devoted wife who had given up her career for the sake of our marriage. But then, my lawyer spoke. Photographs were placed before the court. Messages were read aloud. Financial statements were analyzed. The reality of her betrayal, the extent of her deception, unraveled before her eyes. As the judge delivered the final ruling, her entire world collapsed. She received only a fraction of what she had expected, barely enough to sustain the life she had grown accustomed to. But her true punishment wasn't financial. It was isolation. Her high society friends wanted nothing to do with her. Her family, humiliated by her actions, refused to support her. Even Lucas, the man she had risked everything for, vanished when he realized she had nothing left to give. In the end, she was left alone in a cheap apartment, struggling to survive on the remnants of what once was. The woman who had once worn designer dresses, who had basked in luxury, now stood in line for a retail job she never imagined needing. One day, she called me. Her voice was weak, trembling. "Ryan, I'm sorry. Can you help me?" For a moment, I was silent. Then, with no emotion, I replied, "No," and I hung up. No anger. No hatred. Just the quiet satisfaction of knowing I had let go. Life had taught me hard lessons, but they were valuable. Patience and strategy were far greater weapons than rage. Betrayal always carried a price. And sometimes, the best thing you could do was walk away. I had lost nothing. But Sophia. She had lost everything.